The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Don't adjust your screen. There is nothing wrong. You're about to enter a world where the very concept of time is rendered obsolete by the sheer power of entertainment. You're about to enter the Boggis Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you from an undisclosed location deep in the heart of the Game City, the host of the Boggis Hour, Greg Boggis!
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Boggis Hour, where I spend my entire time talking to a good friend of mine, comedian, producer of the Boston Comedy Festival, author of the book Embedded Community, Jim McCue.
Dave, what do you do? Banker. You're a banker. Well, banker used to be the most prestigious job, in the town, wasn't it? Remember those days? Until they put you guys in the grocery store, right? Well, it's like, I did get a mortgage for my house, and there's a spill in aisle 9. And it changes the whole demographic. Are you in the banking business too?
No, I stay home.
You stay home? Well, that's good. Now, you should treat him like he treats us when we go to that bank, right? Comes home, he's all excited, right? He comes up to that bed, you have those ropes set up right around the bed. All the way around. He gets up to that bed, go, this window's closed. There's a spill in aisle 9.
So that was a clip of the man I'm standing next to or sitting next to, comedian Jim McCue.
Yes, that was me. That was me on Cape Cod a few years back, just making fun of a few people in the audience. I had a banker. He needed to be thrashed, and that's what I do.
Yeah, that's your stock in trade in comedy, is working the crowd, which is something that a lot of comics would really like to do, but you do it at length. Most comics try to at least incorporate a little bit of it into their regular
Most
set
comedians
stuff.
try to fill time. Like, they get hired for a gig, and they say, we want you to do 30 minutes. And the comedian goes, I could do it. You got 15 minutes. They go, well, I'll just talk to people for 15.
So, what'd you have for dinner?
Yeah, exactly. So, what's your name? The guy's an accountant, and they go, good, an accountant. That's really interesting.
There's nothing I can do with that. Either that or they're like, like some wonderful charity or something like that. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not going to make fun of Mother Teresa.
Right. Oh, of course. If you need it, then you're really in trouble. But, I'm a little dyslexic. I think I fall back on my material.
Which is uncommon, really.
It's weird. It's a weird way to work and a weird way to think.
But it's a fun, working the crowd is fun because it really is a challenge. It keeps you...
Yeah, it's fun. It keeps you on your toes. You're not sure what's going to happen. And it's just worked out. It's funny, when I started in Boston way back in the 1900s, it was kind of frowned upon a little bit. The group of headliners that kind of ran everything didn't want to follow a guy who was talking to people in the audience. And they kind of felt like you need to be a monologist. So I was lumped in with, if you're a prop act, a music act, or a guy who works the crowd. Those are like the 3 taboo things to be. So I was always like ashamed of this ability I had,
And that's a really good, it's a really great skill, especially
it saves
if you're,
me all the time.
Especially like you do. You travel around all these different places, right. So a lot of times you've actually got to try to find common things amongst the people in the crowd. And
right, like I just was working a cruise ship, and I went from Boston to Quebec and back, and there was 200 people on the ship that had already seen me on the way up, on the way back, and they were like, "Well, we went to your show. It was good because it was a little bit different." Well, I talked to different people, so
That's always good, yeah.
It changes what happens, you know.
Used to the exact same act.
Right. Which always causes. I'm always surprised that people are surprised about that, you know.
Yeah,
like,
I always tell people, like, you don't go to see a musician and expect them to do all brand new material, do you? Don't you like their classics? And I remember early on watching comedians like, oh, I hope he does this particular bit.
Yeah, I like the Beatles, but can they stop playing all the same songs? Every time I see them, it's like, I've heard this before. But once you know the punchline, as you know,
yes, it's
a sentence now.
Troublesome.
It's not a joke.
Heard it. So you do some cruise ships, but you also do some entertaining of American servicemen abroad.
Yeah, I do. I just try to fill my book. That's what I do. But it works out to be, I usually do at least one tour for the military, and I do casinos and cruise ships and some clubs. And then you have 52 weeks I fill it in. And I've been doing the military thing since 1999.
So that's quite some time.
Yeah, back in the glorious Bosnia, Kosovo.
So that was your first?
That was my first
your
war.
First gig was,
Yeah.
my first war
Yeah.
was
That was my first, like, going to Sarajevo and seeing an actual modern city that was pummeled into the ground. And
so that's a total
driving
revelation,
around
right?
with my mouth open going, oh my God, this really, getting out and they still had ammunition, like shells on the ground where people had,
Because
big
prior
holes
to
in
that,
the building. And,
prior to that, you'd seen pictures and history books and stuff on film about.
Yeah, you
whatever.
kind of watch it on the news, but when you're like, it's much more, it just hits you. You're like, oh my gosh, this was crazy.
So that was in Bosnia. What was that big camp? There was a Camp Bondsteel.
Oh, well, there was a bunch of them. There was 25.
So would you go
on
to a
that
bunch
tour?
of
There
different
was
places?
25. I seems to be the number that pops in my head. There's 25 bases we would do shows at over the course of usually a 10-day tour. So you might do 2 a day or something, and that was all mostly you're in Hummers or they had a tour bus eventually that you would have 2 Hummers in front and 2 in the back, and they'd have the guy with the the 50 cal on the tour freezing outside. I always felt bad for them. You don't think about that, but
oh yeah,
that's driving with the top half of your body out.
Oh yeah, and that's right. They had like the Winter
goggles
Olympics in that neck of the woods. So
yeah,
that's a cold place,
yeah.
right?
You'd look, it'd be like like snow like we had last year. There'd be 6 feet of snow on both sides. With tall, beautiful trees and it was.
So what was the first time you did that? You get to this place. There's like an active war zone. And how did that change your opinion of the people that were serving?
Oh well, it's completely changed my. I'm such a fan of anyone who serves in the military for any amount of time. What they give, even if they're not absolutely in harm's way, they're not with their family and friends for long periods of time. They're doing jobs, 12-hour shifts that most of us don't want to do.
In strange places.
In strange places.
A lot of times amongst people that are
and also a lot of them are young kids. Like when I was a young kid, I went to college to drink beer through a funnel. I was having fun being away from my parents, but it's not so much fun when you're taking orders and you have to do what needs to be done, and they're just like such a step above where I was at that age and where I am to this age.
Right.
Amazing.
So I didn't get to the initial point. Is when did you actually start doing stand-up, or what was it that got you into doing stand-up comedy?
Oh, stand-up comedy?
Yeah.
Boy.
We like to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think I don't think about this a lot, but I guess it was like just before 1990. I was in Connecticut. I went to a place called Billy Jack's, and I started reading up on it because I started watching TV, and I had pretty much failed at everything else.
And that was still comedy was still.
It was big then. They had a book. Who was the guy who wrote the book? He still does it's like a CSI show or something. He used to do comedy.
Oh, Belzer?
Yeah, Belzer did a book.
Richard Belzer.
And it was a hard copy book, and I went to the bookstore in West Hartford, Connecticut, and bought his book when I saw him talking about it on TV, and it had in the back of the book clubs that you could do comedy.
Oh, wow.
And that was my first time. I went, wow, this is possible. There's actually a club in Connecticut in Glastonbury called Billy Jack's. So I drove out there and watched it. And I think Joey Vega was the first professional comedian I saw was the headliner. And he's still doing comedy. I worked with him down at Dangerfield many times since. And then they had an open mic, so I went and watched that and eventually did it and was quite horrible, I'm sure. You know, but luckily at the time you don't realize how horrible you are. You're just excited to be doing it. You know, and then the big decision for me was, do I move from Connecticut? Do you move to New York or Boston? And at that time, so many acts, Bobcat Goldthwait and Paula Poundstone and Stephen Wright,
John Panette,
Lenny
Clark,
Carr, they're all
Steve
coming
Sweeney.
out of Boston. And there was a lot in New York too, but my cousin got me a deal. He was a real estate lawyer in Cambridge.
Oh.
And I was like, that's where I'm going. You know, I got a good deal on a little one-room studio. Packed my bags and
boom. So you're right in the heart of Cambridge, which is where was it?
I was at
Ding
Porter
Ho
Square.
and
But I was after Ding Ho. But
okay.
But I take the red line in and
Catch a Rising Star.
Yeah, I was able to travel
Mix,
around
Comedy
on
Connection, all
the
those
T
clubs.
and get to all the different clubs and I got a job making sandwiches during the day at this horrible job. The guy screaming at everybody. I got fired from.
Faster, faster!
Oh yeah.
And that drives you to want to do comedy.
Yeah, well,
even more.
one of my big things, and I still laugh because I'm pretty good friends with Wendy Liebman now, but she came in one day, and I was like, that's Wendy Liebman. Hushed tones. I made her sandwich. I was like, I saw you at the Johnny Walker contest, and you won, and you're so, and she is just such an amazing writer, and I was like, you're so great. And she's very humble person. She's like, oh, okay. You know, she's probably thinking, just give me my sandwich. Give me my sandwich and let me get out of here, crazy person.
Got a stalker handling my sandwich
Handling
right
my
now.
food. I'll never eat in here again. I used to like this place, you know. But and she's actually coming to the Boston County Festival this year, which I'm excited about.
Which we'll talk about shortly. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, so we get you started comedy. Obviously, you've been doing it since then, so that's a long time. You talked about being in the military, and you have a book.
Yes. Embedded Comedian. Which,
here we go.
Yep.
Do the Vanna White.
Oh, very nice, yeah. This is about roughly a 30-day tour I did. And we went Bosnia, Kosovo, which it was winter conditions. Then we went to Kyrgyzstan, which is very winter. North of China.
Isn't that where Borat is from?
North of China, if you need to know where that is.
Oh, no, Borat.
Which is a stop. It's a stop on the way to Afghanistan. We actually got stranded there, couldn't get into Afghanistan, and then we had both our mutual friend Joey Carroll.
Oh, sure.
We were both touring together.
The great Joey Carroll.
Well, you got to go with a friend because you're living in a bunk with somebody, you know, in barracks with somebody for 30 days and
so
traveling.
Somebody you don't like, and
it's gonna be the longest 30 days of your life. But we actually decided to pack all our winter gear and mail it home from Kyrgyzstan because our next stop was Iraq, and we did about 15 days in Iraq, and got to see, you know, places I never imagined I would ever see, you know,
and what year was that?
The first time I went to Iraq was 2005, and the second time I went was 2007.
So there was still all kinds of.
Oh yeah, we were the first
heavy-duty
entertainers
stuff going
on. We were a month after the Battle of Fallujah.
Oh wow.
Was completed, and those guys were, you know, amazing.
Right.
That
was a very tough.
Yeah.
Challenging.
And we were in Ramadi. The guy, you know, some of these special forces guys that, they were all there. They were all, you know, in the thick of everything, you know.
Wow. So did that being in, especially like a place like that where it was like hot and heavy, did that change how you actually performed? Did you were you
no, you know, the weird, it's a lot of weirdness. Sometimes when things happen, you never react like you think you are. Like there was a time when there's actually a guy, Sergeant Major Ahern, is a guy from Lowell, Massachusetts.
Aha.
And we were somewhere, and they had mortars come in somewhere on the base, and the alarm went off, and a couple people, like the younger guys, kind of ran and dove, you know. And I just stood next to him, me and Joey. He says, "You want to run and dive in the gravel?" I go, "How long you been here?" And he says, 14 months. I said, "I'm gonna do whatever you do." I'm too old to go running and diving in gravel, you know. And he just said, "You might be smarter than you look." Like,
wow.
You know, so and then sometimes you're just, you know, you're too tired, or you just freeze, or, you know, because we did have different, you know, times when things happened, and, you know, weirdness, you know.
Yeah, that's.
I remember they told us this story.
Yeah, you just like
someone
around
tells us-
here, right?
This could
the
be an
worst thing you have is I remember.
Well, this is the one that stuck with me. There's a guy. It could be an urban myth. He says there's a guy went in a porta potty, and the porta potty got hit by a mortar.
Ooh.
Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but all I know is people talked about it, and every time you went in a porta potty, you just sat there like, not now. I don't want to die this way. I want my pants up at a minimum, you know?
Right,
so it was just...
Preferably eating shrimp or something.
And I don't know if that ever really happened. It could be just like our worst fear as a human being, you know?
Wow.
But we did Abu Ghraib prison. We did it twice, actually, me and Joey.
You liked it so much you went back?
Well, we went back. The first time... it was like we did a show for about 600 Marines.
So you weren't like I imagine it was a huge complex, and you went like cell block number 9. Hey.
Well, we got our picture taken in the cells, and they actually had a pretty amazing gallows system that they hung people there. Not we didn't, but the previous
Iraqis,
management did.
Previous crew.
Right. They used to hang people to the point where they this might be too graphic, but they used wires because they were wearing the ropes out.
Ooh.
And if the line was going too long, Saddam or his kids would come up and they'd shoot every third person waiting for their trial.
That was expedition.
Waiting for the trial. The trial's backing up. Don't want to be. You're going eeny, meeny, miny. Oh no. We're laughing about it, but I mean, can you imagine how horrible that is?
No, that's.
And it was it was this whole thing they built to expedite this.
Strangely
horrible...
enough, New Hampshire still has the hanging as one of the methods of death.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you can get the lethal injection, or you can get hung. I don't know if they give you the choice, but anyway, it's not a great bit. But
I've done shows in New Hampshire where that would be the easy way out.
I know. I was thinking about that. You're talking about being under fire or being in places that have been under fire recently, and like the worst gig I ever had. Some guy pulled his false eye out and put it on my hand. And I remember somebody throwing cheese at a headline.
Sure, yeah.
And some woman, in Maine who should have, in Vermont, who should have kept her shirt on, took her shirt off. So that was my extent of battlefield.
Well, my whole attitude.
Battlefield injuries.
My whole attitude towards shows is so relaxed now because it's like.
Yeah, what's to worry about, right?
Yeah, it is what it is. If me and Joey were on truck beds, without PA yelling, or. Whatever they could.
Sure, in fear of a mortar landing on you while you're dropping a deuce. So that's,
yeah. I mean,
it really does take the
or we're
sting out
intense, or we were
a crappy
in,
drive to Bangor.
and they were so great. Did a show on the back of a destroyer that's moving, and they all just sat there Indian style, and they were great. And
one of the best crowds I ever did was the Maine Maritime Academy. It was just I don't know what it was, but it was just.
Yeah,
they're
appreciative,
great crowd.
and it's a break for them. It's a mental break.
Right.
And I always say, me and Joey would agree that I think he would agree if he was here that we kind of had this home cooked feeling because you're a comedian, you work all over the country. You might meet someone they're from Kentucky, and you go, "Well, I worked in Louisville at the comedy."
So you
Caravan.
have a connection.
Oh, I know where that is. And they have a roast beef place. Yeah, we went there, and it's like. Whoa, this connection is made that,
right. Yeah, and that's one of the things, just regular stand-up, period.
Right.
When you can make a connection with somebody about the place that you're at.
And for them, a lot of they used to make
Americans
a joke.
abroad.
Right. And for them, they make a joke. It was kind of, at that time, they'd all say it's Groundhog Day, the movie with
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray, because they had the same day and the same conversations a lot of time. And then they could say, well, that comedian made fun of this guy, or he was at a town near my town, and something,
Sure.
They like us, they don't like it. There's just something to generate,
So now from the military and those kind of events to the cruise ship, which is often called Burial at Sea, right?
Yeah.
And that's a significantly different kind of a place to do comedy. Number one, because you're literally on this vessel
on a ship,
with the people, so
yeah.
You do your show, and then you'll be standing in the buffet line next to the people that you perform for.
You're fully immersed.
So, are there any tricks? Are there any kind of tricks of the trade as far as doing cruise ships that you've learned
Well, cruise ships. You have to be able to work clean. It's got to be corporate clean, and that's.
Not the place to roll out the edgy stuff, is what you're saying.
No, not really. Although I think I'm as edgy as I could be. just because I have kind of a dark sense of humor. But it's funny. I found that you could be clean and kind of edgy about things. They're big theaters. They're they're 800, 1,200 seat theaters, and they're packed in there sometimes. Or if you're on a small, some of the ships have like the ship might be bigger, but the club might be more like a comedy club. See, it's a mix. It's a different experience now, depending on.
Depends on the cruise line you're on. Yeah, because there are some that are, like you said, more actually geared towards an actual stand-up comedy club, which is a little bit of a looser presentation than a lot of the older styles, which is, like you said, corporate clean, and that's a whole. You've really got to be creative, and you've got to be able to.
You can't offend anyone. It's, it's much. It's really a more professionally dangerous situation to be in, because half the time somebody's offended by, you didn't even say. They thought you heard something, and their hearing aid was turned down, or whatever.
Let's go to the tape.
Yeah, their medication was a little, and suddenly they have me saying, I never said that. A lot of comedy is misdirection. You start down the road and you end up over here, and that's what's funny. But they keep going down that road.
He said that. And
yeah, they stop listening at,
So I'd like to ask you about the Boston Comedy Festival. How long has that been going on for?
16 years this year.
Wow, is it really?
16 years.
That's stunning. And you are the conceiver of the whole thing.
I'm the conceiver.
The conceiver, Jim McCue.
The conceiver. What special powers would he have?
What was the inspiration?
Speaking of things we can't talk about.
So was the inspiration, was there any particular other festival that was the inspiration for it, or was it just the spirit of festivals?
No, at that time there wasn't that many. I went up to Just for Laughs.
That's Montreal.
Yep. And tried to get in. And the first time I went up there, I actually got in one year. There was a thing called the Ha Network. Which predates Comedy Central.
Okay.
And I won a contest.
Ha with an exclamation.
I won a contest and got in there, and it was like an afternoon show. But all the people I saw there were like, Jerry Seinfeld was there, and Jim Carrey was there, and George Wallace was there. Like they're all hitters. Tim Allen.
Pretty much comedy legends.
Yes. Yes. And so I knew I wanted to get back there, because whatever they were doing was it. And so the next year I went up there, they had which was at the time a big deal. They had a gay show. And that was, no one even conceived it. Yeah, but
sure,
30 years ago, that was a big deal.
Definitely a big deal.
So the festival was excited about it. It wasn't part of the festival, but the next year they included them. So I went, oh, huh. So then I thought, why don't we do this out of Boston? We'll do a Boston Tea Party. We'll do so good that they'll invite us in. But of course, they didn't invite us. They invited us out. Yeah. So then people started saying, you're the guy who does the alternative festival in Montreal. And I thought, oh, man, I don't want to be. Why don't we just do it in Boston to see if we can get people to come? Because the whole idea was we just wanted to get seen. We wanted to get people that could, managers, agents, club bookers, TV people, anything.
Make it happen.
Yeah, because Boston has a great comedy scene. Right. Great, always there's like classes of people that come out there.
It's a great incubator. It really is.
Right, but it's not easy all the time to get people from New York and LA to come here to actually watch people that are very talented. Yeah. So that was what started the Boston Comedy Festival. And
so tell me about this year's upcoming festival.
This year we got a good year.
I say that every year. When does it start?
It starts November 6th.
Okay.
6 or 7, and ends the 14th.
Okay, so it's quite a long run.
It's a week. Yeah.
So, tell me about some of the shows, some of the performers.
Some of the names you might have heard of. We have Todd Barry and Wendy Liebman and Andy Kindler and
great. I've seen him.
Rich Voss and Bonnie McFarland and George Wallace and Dana Gould and.
Dana Gould was a guy I used to watch
Phillips and
in Amherst at the Amherst Country Club back in the day when he was a 19-year-old Emerson kid, I think.
Yeah, so I feel like we have a really big lineup of people, as well as we have this contest, which is
how many people are in the contest?
96 people are in, and they compete for $10,000.
The grand prize, $10,000.
Yeah, and that's also my best way I have to get people to see new talent, because we get agents and managers and casting people to sit and actually with their clipboard, they're the ones that judge it. And a lot of comedians have gotten work, even if they don't win, out of just being in that.
Being seen.
Yeah.
How many end up applying for the contest?
It's
lot.
a couple of hundred, yeah. We weed it down. They got about a 1 out of 4.
So that's a lot of work to have to
It's-
cull through that
it's a
many
mind-numbing-
comics and watch.
Yeah, it's a,
So you must like break it up like
it's a
is
lot,
that some
lot of
point you're
walking around
watching,
talking
like,
to yourself.
"Ah!"
A lot of talking to yourself, and mumbling. And
black coffee and
I was traveling on a cruise ship watching them online, and I remember and I had to go to where I could get Wi-Fi at every port, right? So I'm in like Halifax, and I remember I went, ah!
2-minute warning. He's got a pulse. He's got a pulse.
Good. I thought I needed coffee, but I'm good. So anyway, I remember going to a grocery store, and I had seen so much comedy that I couldn't read the label of something I was thinking of buying. I was like, because my brain,
Comedy blind.
I was just so cooked. I was
Comedy blind.
I'm just gonna buy it.
So it's coming up, and I think we'll run the website.
BostonComedyFestival.com. I'm at
And
JimMcCue.com.
you're at JimmyQ.com.
And also, if you go to
Anybody can go to the comedy festival.
Anybody.
To any of the shows.
Right.
It's
And we
a
also have
public
Boston
thing.
Comedy Festival Radio on 1510 a.m. in Boston
Ah,
on Saturdays.
okay. Cool. And is there anything else that I'm trying to think. Is there anything else that I've?
Find me on Twitter at Big Jim McCue.
And
That's
do
all
you have
plugs I can
how about let's see, Twitter, Facebook,
Twitter, Facebook, I'm everywhere.
Pinterest,
I might not be on that. I always find something new. I'm on
Grindr.
Instagram, yes.
everything.
I'm on Vine. I did Periscope, which is the audience.
What is Periscope?
Periscope is you go on and you live. I could do this Periscope, our live TV show. People will say,
Oh,
"What is this?
Okay.
Who's Greg Boggis?" And I'll be saying, and I could talk and answer them live.
Nice.
But you never get more than 40 people, that are watching, you do something odd.
It does seem like they're getting at a reductionist point with a lot of
Yes, yes,
social media. It's just me and this other guy in Peoria.
Yeah, if you want to get hits, you go, bikini girl and bubble bath, and then they come on. 500 people come on, and they're hugely disappointed. It's me.
It's Jim McCue, not a bikini.
In a restaurant.
Oh man. Which brings me to you did a Boston comedy calendar some years ago, and I actually was the centerfold at one point.
Nice,
so.
nice. With Dane Cook.
Let's
Was
run the
Billy Burr
picture.
in that? I think Billy.
Yeah, I think it was a whole bunch of
Yeah,
guys.
we had
Let's
some
see if I can
legends
dig up my famous
Kelly.
picture. Bobby Kelly.
Yeah, Tom Cotter.
Yeah, Gary Gulman. Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, we had some people.
Jim McCue.
Yeah.
So it was a pleasure having you on the show, Jim
Thanks for having
McCue
me.
of the Boston Comedy Festival, embedded comedian, and JimMcCue.com. Thanks for coming on my show.
Thank you, sir.
We'll see you again.
All right. Cool.
If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on The Boggis Hour, email us here at theboggushour@gmail.com.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.